Now, the second part of this, we bring in Ja Morant, who's currently on a 25-game suspension. The Memphis Grizzlies have been lethargic without him. So Dez Bryant, former NFL player, most notably a part of the Dallas Cowboys, Dez called out Malika Andrews, and I think a lot of it's because of the coverage that Ja Morant got, and obviously Malika Andrews on draft night last season, or in last offseason, decided to call out Brandon Miller. Y'all remember out of Arkansas, Brandon Miller was involved in a serious situation in which apparently his teammate is accused and is on trial of killing a young lady. And Brandon Miller, whether he knew it or not, was a getaway driver in the scenario. So on draft night, Malika made sure to include the fact that Brandon Miller had those allegations surrounding his name during the season, a part of her NBA draft coverage. Dez's whole thing was like, yo, this man's family's gonna want to watch him getting drafted, the best moment in his life back one day, and they're gonna have to hear about some allegations that never led to Brandon Miller getting charges pressed against him, right? Dez went on Twitter and called out Malika Andrews for not talking about Giddey quick enough. He said, you went out of your way to crucify Brandon Miller on draft day over something he didn't even do. Why haven't you said nothing about Josh Giddey? I advise you not to make this a black or white thing. Your parents really raised you wrong, and just because you went to a private school don't make you better. You appeal, and I know you're kind. You just a puppet. I don't know how a former or current NBA player could sit across from you and look at you with some kind of respect. Dez went on to say people who have never, ever been on the other side of sports will never understand. Why should I give an F when the narrative is a bit built against us to fail? I'm forever on the athlete side. Our love for what we do will eventually be used against us for someone else's benefit. So he kind of lost me with the second tweet, because at first I'm like, okay, he's taking up for the black athletes in Brandon Miller or Ja Morant, right? Then he goes up and it appears to say he's on the side of the athlete. So in the second tweet, it feels like he's standing up for Josh Giddey. I know what Dez is trying to say. He's saying, yo, Malika Andrews, when it was Ja Morant, when it was Brandon Miller, you quickly talked about it on ESPN. Let me clear up the Malika Andrews part of this, right? Because I used to work at ESPN. We got to stop doing that. I'm not saying Malika doesn't have some power at ESPN, but she ain't calling the shots there. Y'all got to stop doing that. Y'all got to stop doing that. On draft night, she was doing her job. I want to make myself clear. It is Malika Andrews' job to tell the story of why Brandon Miller was not in contention to go number one. There's a legit conversation why Brandon Miller wasn't in the real contention to be the number one overall pick, even though you can argue that we saw more of Brandon Miller at Arkansas than we saw from Wembanyama in France. There was no real contention of Miller ever being number one. The Hornets had the second pick. They took Brandon Miller, but I do believe it's fair to bring up, and I know Wembanyama was a can't-miss prospect. Trust me, I get it. But Brandon never was going to go number one, not just because of Wemby being a can't-miss prodigy. To be honest with you, it's because those allegations were out there, and I did think it was relevant enough for Malika to bring up on her broadcast. It's not her responsibility to care about how Miller's family watches draft day coverage 15, 20 years from now. What the hell? Just mute it. I mean, what? I would call out higher entities than Malika an anchor on ESPN. I say definitely there has not been the same energy with Josh Giddey that it has been with like a Ja Morant. That's fair to me. These are nasty allegations. But using Malika like Dez is doing, I think you're stopping the buck way too short. Way too short. Malika Andrews is not running the content that she's not producing the program. She's just reading from a prompter and discussing what her producers tell her to talk about. She did her job. Whatever is happening with Josh Giddey, it needs to be reported, because just like Ja Morant flexing a gun on Instagram, in my opinion, this is giving the NBA a bad look. The fact that we got a young athlete going mute silence and not wanting to over defend himself, even with his lawyer probably advising him not to say much, he didn't say anything at all. I definitely believe that's a problem, and we shall see how it plays out. I think everybody is watching. Look, I'm with the part of Giddey, seemingly not getting the coverage out of the gate, because it's starting to pick up now that Ja or Brandon, got. I'm with that, but I don't like the Malika Andrews stuff. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me why she's getting that type of vitriol and smoke. I never really understood it. I don't get it. I don't really respect it. I want to thank y'all so much for the time, love, and support. It's what your boy would never take for granted. Thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of the Who's Ferro podcast. I am yours truly, the one and only. I'm Ferro. All right, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not done so. I'm out.
I want to salute you, homie, for building your own thing and doing your own thing.
Why build theirs when I believe I can build my own?
You've already done it, or I wouldn't be here.
I'm already the only elite sports and music journalist in the game today. My goal is simple: to be the best there's ever been. So please don't go. Make sure you subscribe and follow the journey. It truly means everything to me. I tell stories. I talk music. I cover sports. I am culture. I am Ferro.